Angela, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for hitting me up.
No, it's so good to have you on. Your personality is amazing. You're fun. You fight good.
Aw.
I'm very excited. I was going to actually get you on sooner, but I wanted to wait till you had a fight, and then I didn't
Uh,
expect to get you so close to your fight. So I appreciate you taking the time out so close to your fight to coming in and doing the show for me.
yeah, well, you know how I do. You got to stay ready to to pick
Yeah,
up that phone because you never know when I'm gonna get a fight offer. So
yeah.
yeah, I appreciate you hitting me up for sure.
No, it's going to be awesome. I can't wait for the conversation. And so you're fighting Ashley Yoder coming up. And what happened with this fight? Like something happened. It got pushed back for someone had corona.
Yeah, one of her coaches tested positive. So the way that it works is before we get there, we usually do a COVID test. But we weren't able to just because they hit us up on Saturday to come and fight.
Right.
So we got there and we all passed the COVID test once we got there. But you're literally just there with your teammates the entire time. So
Right.
you're not really in contact with the other UFC staff, at least not without like mask and everything. And you're just there in quarantine. You get to go to Walgreens or Walmart and Walgreens or whatever, but you're just there in the hotel for like 4 days. So they do one final COVID test right after weigh-ins, and that was the test that one of her coaches tested positive for. So I don't know. Sometimes it can be a false positive. Sometimes it could just be like sitting in their system but not detectable yet until
Yeah.
like that day. And yeah, it's just been killing people. Like I'm so surprised last night none of the fights fell through.
Yeah.
Because like the fight card that we were booked on lost maybe like 5 or 6 fights that week. So yeah, it was a pretty rough week for
Yeah.
UFC for that one.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of people have had it now, and so it's
Mhm.
like they can't get it again. Um, as far as her backing out of the fight, is that a choice? Because I've heard of fighters that like lost their corner and they still fought. Is that a choice, and was it agreed upon by you, or did she just what was it like mandatory because she had no one left, or?
It's mandatory, just because of CDC rules for the state. So I think things were a lot more lax like earlier in the year,
Right.
and especially like when I fought in Florida against Claudia, like things were super lax. Like
Yeah.
you didn't have to wear your mask at weigh-ins. You didn't have to like I don't know. There was a lot less like social distancing. Like you could be in the same room with like the commentators and stuff. But now they keep us all separate.
Yeah.
We're all in our. We barely see anyone else who's on the card except for at weigh-ins. So yeah, it's pretty strict now. And like I'm sure she would have shown up without a corner. Like I would have been like, fuck it. Like neither of us will have a corner. We'll just fight, you know. But
Yeah.
because we already did the weight cut. We're already ready to go. But yeah, like they have to be safe. They can't put the people who work the card at risk. If her corner tests positive, then she could possibly be carrying the disease, and it's just not detectable by the test yet. So they just have to be super safe now. Whereas before, like last year, they weren't being that strict.
Has it affected you fighting in these new regulations, or is it just kind of the same thing for you? 'Cause I know you had 4 fights in 2020, but only two of them I think were
Yeah.
during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I've been able to stay active, so that's
Yeah.
cool. Like, I had 3 fight camps during the pandemic, but the last one didn't go through because I got COVID, so that really sucked. I
Wow.
think that was the only time in my career that I had to pull out of a fight, and it wasn't my choice either. Like, I got it. I started feeling better, and then I got the call like, "Hey, you tested positive for COVID, so your fight's off." And I'm like, but
Wow.
but I feel better now, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sucks, man. It's really like just throwing a wrench in a lot of people's just years. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, this is going to be the year that I'm going to break out and do a lot of things. And some people have been able to thrive, and others have just like kind of sunk. But I feel like I've done all right with it. Like aside from my fight falling through. I've still been able to train, and I'm starting to see a difference in training with a lot of MMA fighters. Like if you have the means, a lot of your camps are more focused on you, just because you can't train with a ton of people without maybe getting your fight pulled because you get coronavirus. So yeah, I think that's been kind of cool, actually, just having a more focused training camp, and you know, the coaches being more focused on me improving as opposed to just coming in with a huge class and doing your own thing.
Yeah. How did this fight come about? Because I mean, I know, like I said, you fought her before, you beat her. How did this fight come about again? And then what are you looking to get out of this fight?
I really think that like UFC just owed us both fights.
Yeah.
And they try to honor that. If we're willing to fight, then they have to at least try to get us in there. You know, like a lot of people are like, I want to fight, and then they're like, oh, you can fight this person. They're like, I'll wait. You know, but me and Ashley both hadn't fought in a while, and and they needed to offer us something. And when they had all those fights fall through, they're like, oh, cool. We can maybe get these girls a fight, and then we don't have to worry about them until like next June or something. So, so when all those fights fell through off of that card that I was supposed to be on, they're like, okay, you guys want to fight each other? And we're both like, yes. They're like, all right, we'll put you on next week. And we're like, okay. So it was cool. And originally, when I said yes, I thought she had a fight camp. Like, I thought one of her opponents like got sick or pulled out or whatever. So when I found out that they just made the fight for us that week, I was even more just confident, because I'm like, oh, she didn't have a camp at all. She's not going to be like more she's not gonna have more cardio than me or just be more focused. Like, we've both been chilling and training, and now we're fighting, so it kind of takes the pressure off and makes it feel more like a hard sparring day at the gym, as opposed to, oh, it's this big event where you've been like focusing on this person for forever and now you're gonna fight. So it's pretty funny how it happened. And like, I wouldn't mind all my fights being like that, you know, like they call me up a week before, hey, you want to fight this person? Yeah, let's do it, you know?
Yeah, you stay so active, and that's awesome, especially during the pandemic like it was. You had 2 fights, and you had 2 fights before that. With her, you know, how are you preparing? Like, are you studying her a lot as of late? And do you do a lot of preparation work? Do you watch videos? Do you watch previous fights? Do you study your opponents, or do you kind of just go with the flow and train the same for everyone? I get a different answer from everybody, so I have to ask.
Yeah. It's different with every person, but with her specifically, I wanted to watch her a little bit just to see what I'm going to be expecting, because everyone has different patterns that they don't really change. You know, like everyone has a foundation of skill that they pull from, and they can get better at it. They can add other things to it, but there's always going to be like that base.
Yes.
And so for her, I know that like I got a lot better since we fought. She got a lot better since we fought. So I haven't watched our last fight yet. I was going to do it fight day, and then they pulled our fight.
Yeah.
But I watched her last few fights, and I'm just like, okay, this is perfect, because I've actually accidentally been preparing for an opponent like this. So it's nice to have that confidence in that, the fact that I've just been like trudging along, working on things that I feel like will work against her, but also like we just go over little stuff, like wherever she's successful, we go on the defense to those positions, and anything that I've been getting tripped up with at the gym that she might do well, we'll go over those positions and make sure I'm not like making the same mistakes I made in the gym in the fight next week. So just working on little positions, very specific drills. I mean, I had 3 weeks as opposed to 1, but I had 3 weeks to like just kind of look at what she does well and work on defending that, work on reattacking, countering it, and I felt prepared. Like, I felt prepared last week, but I feel even more prepared now. So I'm going in there with even more confidence than before.
Nice. Let me ask you: do you ever study yourself? Because for me, like I studied myself almost more than my opponents, because I always watched my last fight, and definitely my last fight, maybe my fight before that, and just kind of saw my weaknesses and how I would beat myself, and then what can I do to change, like a lot of what you said, like a lot of the things that I did the same in many fights, and kind of mix it up a little bit. Do you ever do that, or is it more so just studying your opponents?
A little bit, yeah, yeah. I don't sit and watch it over and over again. But I definitely watch my fights and I see what I'm doing well. Because a lot of times, especially when you lose a fight, you don't want to watch it. You don't want to watch
Yeah.
yourself lose. You
Yeah,
don't want to
yeah.
see the whole process of it. And even a fight that I felt like I won, it's still hard to process because I'm like, man, I'm doing everything right, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how did they score that for that girl, you know? But when I do finally sit down and watch it, I can take in, oh man, I look good doing this. I'm slipping punches. I'm getting out of the way. I'm countering. Before I wasn't countering. I was just getting out of the way. Now I'm like using that to attack my opponents and take advantage of those situations. So I more so watch it to remind myself that I'm improving every time. And no matter what I felt in the last fight, the version that I come out next time is going to be twice as good.
Yeah.
So I think that I focus more on that, the progression, and that's why I wanted to watch my last fight with Yoder on fight day, just so I can just get that huge confidence boost.
Yeah.
Like, man, like you know everything to do in any position that she had you in trouble, you'd get out of that in 2 seconds now. You know,
Yeah.
like just acknowledging that I made this mistake like 4 years ago that I would never make today. So yeah, it's good for me just to remember like what I'm good at, but also to see the progression and see how much I've evolved.
Yeah. Do you, without being too specific, do you have a prediction for the fight, roughly? Like, I mean, I know you won by decision the first time, correct?
Round one knockout.
Round one knockout. Okay, I'll take it. I'll
I
take
would
it.
love that. I mean, I would love that. I feel like there's a few girls in my weight class who are getting those finishes, and it's making them stand out from the
Yep.
crowd. So like, I definitely want to go for a finish. I like every strawweight goes to decision, you know, like
Yeah.
it's boring. So I definitely want to get that finish. And it's hard at our weight class being a striker. Like it's hard to just knock someone out cold. We don't have the weight, you know, it's not as easy as like the heavyweights or the bigger weight classes, but it's definitely possible. You know, it's definitely possible. And
Yeah.
I definitely feel like I could find a chin. I feel like whenever you have like southpaw versus orthodox, that backhand is
Yep.
just like, you know, ready to rock it to their chin. So yeah, I feel pretty confident that I can wobble her.
Well, you don't have all decisions, and I don't think there's that many straw weights that are 16-0 in pro kickboxing. So I think that's definitely in your favor. All right, everyone, don't fast forward. I'm about to save you some money and give you something for free. This podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, the official trimmer of the UFC, and now the official trimmer of the Real Quick with Mike Swick podcast, and yours truly. And I'm going to save you 20% off on your order today by going to manscaped.com, manscaped.com. By entering code QUICK at checkout, you get free shipping and you save 20% off your order. Now, Manscaped is the best below-the-waist grooming products on the market, bar none, by far, without question. And now it's available in Europe, Canada, and Australia. So again, go to manscaped.com, enter code QUICK. That'll let them know that I sent you, and you'll support the podcast, which I know you want to support the podcast because we work so hard for you guys. Use code QUICK, save 20%, and you also get free shipping. You're welcome. You know, I know you're having you're on a little rough skid right now. I think there's one thing we can take from your career and your history, that you've picked yourself up very, very well and brought yourself back from, adversity. Did I say that correctly? Jesus Christ.
Adversity.
Adversity. Oh my God. It's 1:30 in the morning. You got to excuse me here.
Yeah. Adversity together.
Yeah. As many times as I've been punched, 15 fights in UFC, I'm lucky to even have a podcast. So yeah, it took both of us. We got that word out there. So at least we used a strong word. So I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. But because of those fights, I mean, they were split decisions. They were very tough girls. What did you take from that, and how is that affecting you moving forward? Are you using that in a positive way? Is it pressure? Is it kind of negative? I know it's hard to say that if it is, or are you using it in a positive way? And if so, how to push yourself forward and be confident in this fight and come out strong like you've done so many times before to pull yourself back in and get back in the UFC and win championships and win many fights?
It's like any time I've been on a skid. It just lights a fire under you. You know, it makes you go back to the gym and work harder. You work harder for the finish. You work harder to outwork the person that you're sparring or training with. And like if I had won those 2 fights, I wouldn't have improved as much
Right.
as I have. Even if they were the same exact fights, the only difference is the decision went my way. I would not have improved as much as I have in the last, like, how long has it been? Like I fought in September,
September,
so it's
yeah.
been like
6 months?
5 months,
Yeah.
5 or 6 months. So I've been working, man. I've been working my ass off, and I think that's the biggest thing that you can take from losing. Like I feel like I'm the hardest working strawweight because I lose so much. Like it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
But every time I get a skid, like I come back like twice as good. So I'm looking forward to that upswing. Like I'm kind of on a downswing now, but I honestly feel like those fights were like some of my most impressive fights to date. So it's just like a couple little adjustments that I have to do to start standing out from the crowd again, start knocking out these ranked girls,
Yeah.
and like getting finishes over someone like the last 2 girls I fought, in which I feel like was very possible those days. There's just a little bit that I didn't do. I didn't follow Claudia down to the ground. I didn't like go ham on Michelle when I was worried about the takedown, like little things that I could have done that would have gotten me a finish as opposed to going to the scorecards. And wins over those 2 girls or anyone like that would have gotten me a title
Absolutely.
shot.
Yeah.
So I'm just like trying to, like, it does piss me off thinking about it. But knowing that I'm so close to like even a potential title shot, so close to like being considered for that, it gives me a lot of it just gives me a lot of energy. I wake up and I'm more motivated than I would be if I had just gotten beat up in those fights. I'm looking at the positive in that sense and just trying to focus on the future and how close it is. Like it's super close for me, and it's super close for any strawweight really who's in the top 15. Like 2 big wins, and people are looking at you for the next title shot. They want to see someone mix it up. So I'm holding on to that, and
Yeah.
I know I can outpoint them.
Yeah.
I just have to finish them now. So that's the
Yeah.
goal.
And from where you've been, who you fought, and how high ranked you've been, obviously champion and everything else, performance is so important. And even though Ashley's not a high ranked opponent, you can still jump pretty far up, with a good performance in this fight. So that's one thing good about it, obviously.
Yeah.
But moving on from that, Rose is fighting Zhang coming up. I have to get your opinion on
Mm.
that. What do you think is going to happen in that fight?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like we really haven't seen a lot of Weili Zhang, and her fight with Joanna was really impressive. But I don't know. I feel like they both of those girls just didn't move out of the way at all.
Right.
It was kind of like a
Yeah.
Muay Thai fight.
Yeah.
Like they both stood in the
Stood in
pocket,
front.
they
Yeah.
hit each other, and they were just like, "Fuck you, no, fuck you, no, fuck you,"
Yeah.
and that's what makes an amazing fight. But I don't see Rose doing that. I don't see Rose
Yeah.
standing there and swinging. Like I see her being more elusive, and just trying to hit and not get hit. She did really good with Andrade doing that until she started getting hit in the 3rd round in their last fight, and in their first fight before she got slammed on her head. So I don't know. It's a weird one, and I'm curious to see if like Rose has any intention of taking her down, because Weili does seem like she's hard to control on the ground. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens. That should be a fun one.
It's a good one for sure. Did you happen to see the fights yesterday? I don't know what time
Yeah.
for you, the time zone. It was early this morning for me. What did you think about Amanda Nunes, and what do you think it is that makes her so different and so great as a fighter?
Dude, she just has that power. It's like,
It's crazy, right?
sometimes you have a fighter that just has that knockout touch,
Yeah.
like they I don't know if you train for it. Like she doesn't look like a big beefy like woman,
Yeah.
you know. She looks kind of unassuming, so it's funny that she can hit so hard. Like if you see her next to Cyborg, you're like, oh yeah, Cyborg can hit way harder, but I don't think she can. Like
Yeah.
we saw that happen, we saw it play out, and like I think Amanda Nunes hits way harder. So some people just have a good way of just twitching everything at the right moment and landing all of their body weight right on the chin, and like she does a great job of that. She really like leads in with that jab before she throws the crossover top, and like I watched her tape and I was like, oh, that's how she's landing that every time, because she kind of hops in before she throws the crossover the top. And I'm like, well, I don't know if she'll be able to do that against Megan, just because she's so long, and she did it. She did
Yeah.
it. She hit her. She wobbled her, put her on Bambi legs, and then took her down and choked her out, or armbarred her. So like it was super impressive. Is what I expected, but in even more dominant fashion than I thought it would be.
Yeah. And getting back to you really fast. I know you're not old. You're obviously doing really well in your prime. I'm not saying you're old, but I am wondering what is your goal at this stage? You know, you were a champion. You did kickboxing. You know, you're at the top in the UFC. What is your goal as far as fighting? And do you have a set number of fights that you want to get out, or a goal that you want to reach, or are you just fighting to see until that day comes when you realize you might be, you know, done, and then just when that day comes, you stop?
Well, I gave myself a deadline to have a kid.
Okay.
So I'm like, I want to have a kid one day, maybe.
Yeah.
If I do, I want to have the kid at no older than 40, because I feel
Right.
like that's when things start getting crazy. So that's my deadline for that. And I'm not sure if I'd be able to jump back in the gym after that at 40. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I would want to. I just got a house, I got a dog. I'm like, man, I'm gonna just hang out with my dog all day, you know. So like, if I have a kid, it's probably gonna be even worse. I'm just gonna want to hang out with the baby all
You're
day, not
right.
go to training.
It changes
Um,
things.
yeah, so it's definitely something I've been thinking of, like the future, because it's coming. It's on its way. It's gonna come faster than I think. But yeah, just being so close to that title shot, I feel like another good year, and it's definitely gonna happen for me. So I think I'm really just focusing on the next like 3 or 4 fights. I think if the next 3 or 4 fights go really well, then I'm definitely going to be looking at a title shot soon. And honestly, if I get the title shot, I win the belt. Like, I'm just gonna fight until I can't anymore,
Yeah.
you know? Like
That's
that's the
good.
ultimate goal for a lot of fighters, is to get the belt. And once I get there, like that's me doing my thing. That's me
Yeah.
doing what I set out to do. So I would love for that to play out the way that I see it in my head. I know everything, you can't really plan on that kind of stuff, especially with MMA, because it's so chaotic. But I definitely see that happening. Like a few more fights, fighting for the title, getting the belt, having a baby,
There's a lot of
making them
stuff
wait,
there.
making them wait till I'm ready to defend. No, but yeah, I think yeah, that's pretty much my goal for the end. And then I mean, after I retire, I definitely would like to coach. I feel like there aren't enough female coaches in the world for
Yeah.
MMA, so I definitely love coaching. I love teaching. When they asked me to do the unlocking victory for Dom, I was like, yes. I put on my teacher voice, you know,
Yeah.
and I really love helping out the younger generations of MMA fighters. So I think that would be a lot of fun. Me and Adam both, my husband Adam, we're
Yeah.
both like really into that idea, and opening up our bar, our fight team bar.
You got a podcast too, right?
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
have a
I've seen your
podcast
podcast. I
here.
know you have one, but I mean, is that something that's going to continue on after as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Like, if anything, like when I do my podcast, is just me
Yeah. Yeah.
practicing speaking in a voice where I can put it on air and people actually know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
So yeah, like we still do that, and then the ESPN gig is pretty cool. I think they like me, so hopefully they'll keep me
Yep.
around afterwards too. But yeah, I feel like there's a good future for me after I put the gloves down, after I hang them up. I don't have to fight till my knees are falling out of my sockets and
Yeah.
stuff. I can like do something else when my body starts breaking down. So yeah, I feel like I have a good future set ahead of me.
Well, this next fight with Ashley is coming up on March 14th next weekend. I think this is interesting just to show you how long I've been fighting in the UFC and how kind of old I am, I guess. I don't say like that, but it's March 14th, and you are fighting at UFC Fight Night 187. Now, I fought at UFC Fight Night 1. Like that's
Wow.
it's been 186 fight nights, just fight
Oh,
nights, not UFC
goodness.
events, just fight
Yeah,
nights since I fought it was my second UFC fight. How crazy is that?
wow.
UFC Fight Night 1. It's crazy. So when I saw you as 187, I was like, holy shit, 187 fight nights already? That's so crazy.
That's crazy. What year was that?
Oh my God, 2005?
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was an Ultimate Fighter
Yeah,
in 2004, and I think it aired maybe late 2004, early 2005, and that's kind of when I started my career in the UFC. And then
that's
and then
crazy.
11 years and 15 fights. I had a huge
Wow.
hiatus for 3 years where I was injured, so that's why I don't have as many fights as I should have.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. It's how many it's up to now, and then all the other
Yeah.
different fights, the ESPN fights, the Vegas fights, the Fox fights, the all these different ones.
That's insane.
And I was going to ask you, though, I'm going to get a little bit on your history, just briefly, a little bit on your history. How in the world did you go from art school to? I know, obviously, I've done some research. I've seen some interviews, so I know that you just started training in kickboxing. You fell in love with it, and you were
Yeah.
hooked. Why? Like that's what I want to know why, because nobody's ever asked you why. But it's like when so you're kickboxing, and there's a difference in losing weight, which I think is what you said you were trying to do when you got
Yeah.
into kickboxing. There's a difference of losing weight and punching air, maybe a bag. But when you start like hitting people in the face and you're getting hit in the face, like what was it that like hooked you? Was it the alphaness of it? Was it the toughness of it? The challenge? Like what was it that made it like where you were like, okay, art's cool, but punching people in the face is cooler?
I don't know. I think it might have been like a lot of pent up aggression.
Yeah,
Like
must have been, huh?
like when you're in art school, so I was like I, I didn't know any other artists when I went to art school. I didn't know like the culture or the world, and there's a lot of pretension there. So I
Hmm.
went to like a really accredited art school called Cooper Union, and I loved it. But like where I come from, if you can draw, you're an artist.
Right.
Where when I get to art school, suddenly like you can draw, but you're not you're just like too didactic is what they would
Yeah.
say. Like it's too on the cuff. You have to think more outside of the box. So I would get so angry when I do like these nice paintings or like do a nice portrait or something, and someone would like put a rock on the table and they're like, that's
Yeah.
my art piece, and everyone's breaking it down like it's this like amazing thing. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
just a fucking rock, you know. Like it's like all those silly memes about art, you know, like they'll
It could be
draw
anything.
a circle on the wall and like they're like that's art. And I'm like, but this drawing took me like 5 days to do and
Yeah.
it looks amazing and everyone hates it. So like I had a lot of pent up aggression because of that. And it was nice once I graduated school to go into a gym and just let it out, you know, like just hit a bag and just be like, "Rrr," you know, like just I don't know. It's different from running. It's different from like
Yeah.
spin class. Like I tried literally every other workout and just got bored with it. Like there was no goal in mind. But when I did Muay Thai, I think just learning a martial art is something that I always wanted to do, but also because I was really skinny. I was really skinny, like a stick. I probably weighed about 110 on a good day. And being able to like generate the amount of power that I could when I threw an elbow on the bag was just like, what? Like I had this the entire time and nobody told me how to do it. It's like when your brother teaches you like, oh, like just do like this to someone's nose and it really hurts them, you know? And suddenly you feel powerful. Different. You're like, oh, I could just fuck someone up by doing that. So like first time I threw an elbow on the bag, I was like, whoa, that's so cool. Like that feels really hard because my elbow hurts, but I bet they're going to hurt way more. So I think that was like the first moment where I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to get really good at it. Maybe I'll be like one of those like stunt women one day, or maybe I could just teach kickboxing or something like that. But I just really liked it. So I kept doing it.
So obviously when you start in kickboxing, you're not going as hard, and then you see the people that are going hard. So you see the people that are fighting. When you're making that transition from just training to fighting, was there anything surprising, like when you got hit in the face, or you were throwing kicks, or you were hitting other people? Was there anything surprising about that, and how did you adjust? And did you like it, or obviously you did not like it, but
yeah. I think I was surprised myself in how tough I was.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't one of those people who were like afraid of getting punched right off the bat. Like, you know, some people are like, oh, don't touch my face. But I was just like I would be like, you know, like Weili and Joanna, like I get hit hard. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck you, you know, like it just made me want to go harder. So it was cool finding that out about myself, because it really is like you never know how someone's going to react once they get into sparring. You know, like it'll be the person you least expect that just turns into a monster in sparring. You're like, oh, okay. So I was one of those people, the little skinny 110-pound girl trying to beat up the big guys, you know, and I really liked clinch as well. Like I thought that was a really cool concept. Like in our coach, Brandon Levi, he's in New York. Our coach did a lot of clinch, like more than most schools, because most people were like, ew, and then they quit your gym. But we did a lot of clinch work, and I just thought it was so cool that I could put my head in someone's chin and then they couldn't hurt me. You know, like I just like tie them up like this, no matter how big they were, and just knee the shit out of them, and they couldn't hurt me. So it just made me feel, because I was like such a small like girl in my 20s. It just made me feel a lot more in control of like situations, you know. And I'm also like very timid. I don't know. People always say they can't tell now, but like back then I was very timid, very quiet. And you know, people try to like take advantage or like, push you over. They think of you as a pushover when you're just like really quiet. So being able to have that in my back pocket always made me like walk into a room with my head held a little higher, you know, like, even though I'm still 110 pounds, I was just like, what? You know?
That's so funny.
Try me. I'll put my elbow in your face. So yeah, it was really empowering for me. Being able to like take a punch from a bigger person and give it back and have fun doing it, not just be like traumatized while it was going on, but have fun and start working on like throwing head kicks. I remember the first time I threw a head kick, like even though they blocked it, I was like, whoa, I can get my leg up there, you know? So it's just like all these fun little things that you discover about yourself once you start doing something like that, like a martial art or a sport that you just really love.
So when you started fighting, obviously you were doing good. You started fighting, you went 16-0, but when you first started winning, how gratifying was that for you? Like, what did that compare to anything else in your past? Like, do you think it was more gratifying than the artist that set the rock down and got all the praise from everyone? How would you kind of rate that gratification of actually winning fights and beating up somebody in a dominant way and getting that victory?
Well, it's like you're just like stunning on people, you know. So like when you have a good piece, like an art piece, or even just like getting into art school, I was just like, I felt like I was mentally stunting on people. Like, yeah, this is how good my brain is. So when you when you fight someone and you beat them up, it feels more like, I don't know, more like primitive, you know,
Yeah.
like
Super alpha.
I'm just a badass. You know, like I beat you up. I was stronger than you. I was more of an animal than you were. I came at you hard and you couldn't take it. And I think especially because like in the beginning, it doesn't feel like there's much skill involved. Like you're just going, bah, throwing everything that you did on the pads at the person, and whoever like gets tired first loses. But yeah, it was an amazing feeling. Like my first couple of fights, just being able to go forward and throw everything at someone, and every now and then land something clean and see their
Yeah.
head snap back, and then getting your hand raised in front of like your friends and family and stuff. Like it just is, it's a feeling that you can't really replicate. Like I
Right.
can't think of anything else, even at the low level of like the WKs in Virginia, you know, in a basketball court
Yeah.
at some like elementary school. Like even that, like it's really hard to replicate that feeling of accomplishment, just beating someone up and getting your hand raised.
And then going 16-0 as a kickboxer, having a lot of success there, training in Muay Thai and stuff. Moving into MMA, was that like a transition because it wasn't enough? Like with kickboxing, that you know that MMA was just more hardcore, and you wanted to just test yourself in a more crazy, tougher environment?
Well, like when I first started fighting, I was still like, man, MMA is like too much. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't want to get punched on the ground, like
Yeah,
and
right.
have my head bouncing off of the mats. Like that's too much. I don't like that. I'm gonna stick with Muay Thai. And I don't know. I think the more I started, because I was dabbling in like jujitsu at the time. So the more I started messing around, like going from like messing around with like my teammates, or like punch them up and then like jump for an armbar or something because I saw it on TV, and then like roll around with them and then stand up and start punching again. I'm like, you know what? This is actually pretty fun. It's like kind of cool to put everything together. Everything, you know, you can do anything in there except for like eye gouge and kick them in the
Yeah.
nuts. But like everything, you know, you can just do it. And it doesn't matter if someone taught it to you. It doesn't matter if it's part of the rule set of that sport. Like you just do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what sparked my interest, is just messing around with teammates, like in between like Muay Thai and jiu-jitsu classes, you know? And when they introduced the strawweight division on Tough, when they said they were doing the strawweight division, I had already been watching the girls in like the strawweight weight class, and I'm like, man, like these girls can't strike. Like none of them hold their hands up. None of them
They're not
like
16-0.
throw straight punches. Yeah, like I'm like, these girls can't strike. I'm gonna knock them all out. And obviously it didn't go that way, but like that's definitely whenever you have someone who's like a specialist in their field, and they watch like a really good boxer watching MMA, a really good jiu-jitsu player watching MMA, they're like, dude, these girls don't know what they're doing. But it's now that I've been in there, I know that there's so much more to it. Like there's so much more going on. Like my striking looks sloppier now, I think, just because I have to worry about the takedowns. I have to worry about all other sorts of things, crazy kicks or whatever. But it's effective. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely felt like there was money to be made. I felt like I could be successful in it just because I was so confident in my striking, and still am. And yeah, I think that's what kind of made me gravitate towards it. I'm like, beating a girl in MMA in the striking department is going to be easier than beating a girl in Muay Thai in the striking department.
Right.
So that's when I started working on my wrestling and everything and trying to put it all together.
Well, this leads into my next question, but you do know I have a pretty decent Muay Thai and all-around MMA BJJ fight camp here in Phuket. So if you and your family ever come to Phuket, hit me up, and we'll take care of you, and you have a great place to train, and we'll show you the islands and everything else. So
yeah, it's gorgeous out there.
What's up, everybody? I am here in Thailand. This is the first time I've ever been here. Been dying to come here for years. Mike Swick, he's one of the big reasons he's been trying to pull me down here. What he built down here, aka Thailand, is incredible. There's people here from all over the world. You can train mixed martial arts here, jiu-jitsu. They have weightlifting, they have cardio, and obviously they have Muay Thai, boxing, everything. I'm telling you guys, I know everybody wants to go to Thailand because Thailand's so cool, but you can't come to Thailand without coming to AKA Thailand. Come on.
One of the biggest questions I get is so many people ask, and they always say 20 to 22, 23 years old. Is 20 to 20, I say 23, 20 to 23 too old to start training? Considering you started at 24, what would you say? I started young. I started when I was like 8 years old, so it's hard for me to answer that question.
Okay.
But I do know guys on my team at AK that started really late. I think Daniel Cormier started at like really late in his career for MMA. What would you say, considering you started at 24, to someone asking, you know, is 20 too old, 22 too old to start training and have a career?
I would say like no age is too old. Like I started MMA at 28 or 29.
Yep.
So I was just coming in with like 4 years of experience in Muay Thai. You know,
Yeah.
I was 16 and 0, but I was hustling.
Yeah.
So like, if you're passionate about it, like just go for it. Like who's going to stop you? And the fact that like Cormier was so successful starting like at an older age, you know, you don't have to have an example of someone being successful in it to be successful. You know, like you don't need someone to look up to and be like, oh, well, they were 28 and I'm 29, so I can't do it. You know, like they were the first person to do it, so you can be the first person to do it at 29. So I never want to dissuade someone from it, especially because athletes, like you kind of age different depending on how much damage your body has taken. So
Absolutely.
like you starting at 8 and then being a 24-year-old, your body has probably been through way more than mine starting at 24. Like I was like all loosey-goosey. I could still like bring my arm over my shoulder like that, you know, like everything's like Gumby and not really like stressed out or broken yet. So yeah, I feel like if your body feels good, if you enjoy the sport enough to be super passionate and dedicated to it, then you should go for it. But you can't half-ass it.
Absolutely.
So like when I first started, I was doing three times a week. And then like I got so into it, I was doing like 5 days a week. And then I started running on the 6th day, you know, so like you have to be dedicated and passionate in order to succeed, because there's always going to be someone working harder than you and they might have started before you. But if you're passionate about it, if you have a little talent for it, that goes a long way. And if your body lets you take the brunt of training, because it takes a big toll on your body. If you're able to handle it, then you should go for it. And like I always say, like don't go in there with a plan to be UFC champion. Like, I mean, it works for some people,
it's baby
but
steps.
I feel like it puts extra stress on something that should be fun. So if you're having fun doing something, then the success will come no matter what your goals are for the future. So just go out there, have fun, do it, see what happens, have a backup plan, you know, have something else you like to do. But and have a way to make money while you do it, because you're not going to make money for a long time doing it. And see what happens. Never know. You only have one life, so just do it.
I agree with you so much. You got to have passion. And I think so many people, they get into things because of the end results success than what the actual thing is. Because they see that it makes money, they see that it makes you famous, they see that it makes you this, and that's their motivation for getting in something versus being passionate about it. And I've seen so many fighters, even Izzy, you know, have said multiple times that when he was a dancer and stuff, he never would have thought he would be a fighter, and he's one of the best in the world right now. You know, he just took a loss at 205, but he's still one of the best in the world. And many other fighters never expected to be fighters, and they ended up being really good fighters because they're passionate about it. So 100% agree with you. And then also going back to what you said about, like you got in the UFC when you were 29, I was 25, so I was younger, but I was spending a lot of time, because I had been training since I was 8. When I got in the UFC and was training for fight camps, a lot of my fight camps were spent doing rehab work, chiropractic work, and stuff like that, because my body was, you're absolutely right. It was like, it was already getting to a point where it was shot, and just the regular workouts were just taking a toll, and it was like really hard. But moving past that, just real fast, did you, when you started watching fighting and you started getting serious about it, did you have any fighters that you looked up to? And then do you still have any fighters that you look up to and that it motivates you and inspire you?
Oh yeah, there's a bunch, man.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
I think the first person I looked up to was Cyborg, Chris Cyborg, just because she just went in there and gave no fucks, you know, like she was just like, I don't care what your game plan is, I'm just gonna come in there and punch you in the face. And I felt like my style mimicked hers a lot. Like I felt like when I would fight, I wouldn't really think. I would just go, and like I was literally just like when coach says, all right, 30 seconds hard on the bag, and you're like,
just go for it.
That's literally what the first 30 seconds of all my fights look like. So I really liked watching her, because it would give me ideas of things to try to pull off in my fights. And I just loved how dominant she was. And then Miriam Nakamoto was another one, because like I didn't see too many Muay Thai fighters that looked like me. So like to see Miriam Nakamoto in there, like doing nasty stuff to girls, like throwing elbows, like kneeing the hell out of them, like having like amazing clinch was another thing that I really like to do, is just clinch up my opponent first to make them tired and then start teeing off on them. She was like the best at that. So watching her, especially when she transitioned into MMA, that was really cool to see. And she was also older too. So I'm like, man, if she can do it, I can do it. So that's one of my inspirational kind of people that I looked up to. And I'm like, okay, because I was also one of those people who were really self-conscious, like, man, I'm really into this fighting thing, but I'm way older than all these other girls who I'm fighting, I started way older than all these other girls. Like they've all been doing it since they were kids. So I was always a little self-conscious about that. But seeing her story and seeing how dominant she was, that always really inspired me. And I think out of the guys, I really love watching DJ fight, Demetrius Johnson.
Yeah,
he was just seamless with the way that he strung everything together. Like went from striking to wrestling to submission tips back to striking. Like I always loved watching him fight. And he was one of those people who I felt never got the credit that he deserved, but like watching him dominate when he did, that was really cool to watch as well, because that was like early in my MMA career.
Yeah, he's arguably one of the best in the world. A lot of people have him as the GOAT. And you've been very successful in your career and quite the celebrity in fighting. Do you have a celebrity moment that you can think of that, like, because of who you are in the UFC, because of what your career and what the UFC has kind of like provided for you as far as star power, that you went out and did something that you would have never been able to do without being who you are, that was just a really cool, memorable kind of experience that you could share?
I'm
sure there's been a lot, but
it was really cool. Yeah, there's been a lot.
Yeah, it's a cool feeling.
Yeah, it's a cool trip, man, being in the UFC. But recently, I got the chance to do a ESPN gig in Abu Dhabi. And I was like one of the few people who got to watch Adesanya versus Costa live. And I thought that was such a privilege, you know, like I felt like everyone was jealous, like anyone who was an Adesanya fan, who was a UFC fan or whatever, like they were all jealous. Like that place would have been packed if the pandemic wasn't happening. So it just felt really cool to have that opportunity to be flown out to Abu Dhabi, first of all, and like wine and dine and everything. But then to be able to be in their arena during the pandemic when no one else could really like sit there as a fan. And I'm such a huge fan of like both of those fighters. So like, so watching that live was just awesome. And you could feel, like they always say, oh, you can feel the electricity in the room, but you could. I was just like tense, you know, and yeah, I think that was probably the coolest moment one of the coolest moments of my UFC career outside of like fighting.
Yeah. That's so awesome. And yeah, it's cool that you get these opportunities. Lastly, because a lot of people want to know this, I'm sure, that follow you. If you could give yourself some advice, like a younger you that would help you or would have helped you progress differently than you, it's always about learning and from your mistakes and stuff anyway. But what advice would you give yourself that maybe you should have taken earlier?
I would have said, don't rush it.
Yeah.
And I think because I was so self-conscious about being the old age of 25, 26, I was rushing it. I wanted to fight as many people as possible. And once I had MMA on my brain, I wanted to fight as many MMA girls as possible. I was less concerned with learning every day and more concerned with what the next fight was going to be. So I think like if I were to do it all over again, I wouldn't have tried out for tough. And it's hard to say because who knows what would have happened. I might not have gotten the opportunity to even meet Dana White or meet anyone who could have gotten me in the UFC. So it's hard to say like, hey, it's his dogs running around. It's hard to say, coulda, shoulda, wouldas, but I do feel like whenever, especially now, it seems like any girl who has a win streak can be brought into the UFC at any moment. You know, you get a good win streak, you get a good highlight reel, then you could be brought in. And I feel like I definitely could have done that outside of the UFC and really built my confidence. And the only reason I say that is because when I went to Invicta and went on that 4-fight win streak, it was such a huge confidence boost. Like it was like I was down. I was upset after like losing 2 and getting cut. Even though I knew those girls were like really good, I was upset. I was like, man, I'm not as good as I thought I was. And when I went into Invicta and won 4 in a row and got the title, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I am as good as I thought I was. I'm just green. I just need more experience. And I think if I had gotten that experience outside of the UFC where the stakes aren't as high, where there's not as much pressure, then I would have come into the UFC with a lot more just understanding of what type of fighter I was and what I could do in there and where I could beat people up. Like I felt like I would have taken more risks. I would have been a better wrestler even just because I wouldn't be so worried about getting reversed or so worried about like what if my shot doesn't work and then I'm getting ground and pounded. So fighting at the lower level is really good for any young fighter. Even if you've had like 20 fights and you're still not in the UFC yet, like just keep doing it, man, because like eventually they're going to call you in and you're going to look like a pro. You're not going to look like someone debuting. You're going to look like a veteran in there against a guy who no one thinks that you should be able to beat. And then you beat him and then everyone's talking about you. And you've seen that happen a lot, especially this last year with all the fights falling out. They bring in a young guy with a good record and he just demolishes someone that he shouldn't have, you know? So I feel like that's probably the best path for some of these guys to go, guys and girls. And I think for women, just because there's a lot less athletes out there, then you can take the risk and, you know, not jump into the UFC right away. You can get your experience up and figure out what kind of fighter you are and really just work on your skills for a few years before you jump in there, because once you get into UFC, you have to be ready to fight the champ. Yeah. You know, like my first fight in the UFC on Tough was Carla Esparza, and she ended up being the champ. So it's like, if you're not ready to fight the champ, then you're going to have a hard time in there. So that's the advice that long-winded answer. No, it's good. That's the advice that I give to any young fighters.
Well, you have a huge fight coming up. Yeah, you have a huge fight coming up this weekend. Ashley Yoder, UFC Fight Night 187. It's crazy, it's 187. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time out, especially so much of your time to do the podcast. I hope your fight camp or your fight week goes good. I'll be watching the fight from here. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. You're so positive. You're so fun to talk to, even at 1:30 in the morning. So thank you so much for taking time out and doing this for me and doing it before you go to your fight camp fight week. Yeah, and getting all busy with all the stuff that you have to do there. I know with the quarantine and all the regulations and stuff. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out. That was awesome.
Yeah, no, I want to make sure that you come back on the show as well. You got to promise me that you'll come back for your next fight as well.
Yeah, maybe I'll come to Phuket.
Yeah, come to Phuket. Hit me up. Hit me up. And yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Great gym. And then there's so many things to do around here. You'll have fun the entire time. So just let me know anytime y'all want to come and we'll make it happen.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.